Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. Let us take a look at a gentleman called Advocate Mjiyako. I'm not even going to, stick out my neck and say that Mjiyako is an advocate or whether Mjiyako is an attorney. I really still have to verify that. But Mjiyako is a lawyer of sorts. Let's call him Advocate Mjiyako for convenience's sake. Mjiyako comes into, the whole equation of the Meyiwa trial in this manner. There's a gentleman called Ntanzi. Ntanzi is accused number 2 in the Meyiwa trial. Apparently, Ntanzi was the first person. Ntanzi was the first person to be arrested in connection with the killing of Meyiwa. And subsequent to that, Ntanzi is supposed to have made a confession to the police. And the evidence also says, as a result of that confession made by Ntanzi, the police were then able to arrest the rest of the accused. In other words, accused number 2, 3, 4, and 5 were apparently arrested because of the information given by Ntanzi, connecting them to the killing or murder of Meyiwa. So this is a very key piece of evidence. This is very, very important. Now let us look at the circumstances surrounding how Ntanzi is supposed to have made this confession. But let me begin by saying that Ntanzi has vehemently denied ever making any confession to any magistrate. That is very crucial. And we must bear this in mind as we go along. Ntanzi is supposed to have been taken before a magistrate, apparently was in the company of this Advocate Mjiyako, and he made that confession. Now, the interesting thing again is, not only doesn't Ntanzi dispute ever making any confession, but he also disputes that he ever had a legal representative, a lawyer, advocate, or attorney called Mjiyako. He says he has never had a legal representative or anybody representing him by the name of Mjiyako, and that he never gave that so-called Mjiyako any authority to act on his behalf in this matter, especially when it comes to matters surrounding the confession that he's supposed to have made to a magistrate. Now, the interesting thing also is, Kininda has also denied ever meeting Mjiyako. He says he does not know Mjiyako. Gininda in this matter knows so many people. And he was so central to the whole thing. It baffles me why Gininda says he has never met this Mjiyako. Because one would expect that one way or another, this Mjiyako, this disputed and controversial Mjiyako should have met Gininda at some stage. Now, what is also shocking about it all is a confession is supposed to be made willingly and voluntarily. That is cardinal to the making of a confession. If it can be found that a confession was not made willingly and voluntarily, freely and voluntarily, those are the words that they use, freely and voluntarily, then such a confession cannot stand in court. Now, how does the court make a decision whether or not a confession will stand? The court has to take into account the full circumstances surrounding the making of that confession. It also has to take into account the version of the person making the confession statement. In other words, the person making the confession statement has to confirm that confession statement as having been made by him or her, freely or voluntarily, before a magistrate. In other words, the person is making the confession is supposed to be aware that he or she, in this case, it's a he, is Bongani Ntanzi. Bongani Ntanzi is supposed to have been made aware that he was going to be taken to a magistrate to make a confession, which confession was supposed to be made freely and voluntarily. Ntanzi disputes all this, and vehemently so, let alone the person who was supposed to be acting as his lawyer. Now, Mjiyako has got a huge role to play here. Because you see, if you're purporting to act on behalf of an individual who disclaims you so strongly, and in any event, Ntanzi says, this Mjiyako was in and around him. At some stage, he wanted to fire Mjiyako. At some stage, Mjiyako wanted him to confess to a crime that he never committed. You know, Mjiyako was in and around him. But whether it was with the tacit approval of Ntanzi is definitely in dispute, because it will look like Mjiyako just imposed himself or was imposed upon Ntanzi by somebody, because Ntanzi has no recollection of him getting into an arrangement in terms of which Mjiyako would be his legal representative, especially in and around the confession that he's supposed to have made. So this is something that the court ought to have taken into account very seriously, because if you dispute even the person who is supposed to be your lawyer, you dispute the confession itself, I think the weight of evidence should have favored Ntanzi here, or ought to favor Ntanzi, because another interesting dimension to the whole thing is, why wouldn't Ntanzi freely and voluntarily make a statement before a magistrate and then be brought before the Pretoria High Court and deny the same statement so vehemently? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because circumstances have not changed. I mean, this is the same Ntanzi who's always been in custody, who's supposed to have made the statement, and come the trial, Ntanzi has got nothing to do with the so-called confession. Yeah, so for this morning, I just want to say to you, this Mjiyako has to be located. I really want to find out who Mjiyako is and what role Mjiyako was playing in all this. Was Mjiyako ever at any stage, brought into this trial to act on behalf of Bongani Ntanzi? By whom? How did that happen? How did that happen? In the light of the fact that Ntanzi, denies that the man ever acted on his behalf as his lawyer. One would have expected that Mjiyako would have at least have come to court to clear his name. Why didn't they subpoena Mjiyako to buttress this confession story? Why didn't the prosecution call Mjiyako to testify that, yes, it was I am Mjiyako. I was present when you were taken to a magistrate and the confession was made before a magistrate in my presence and all the rest of it. In other words, to support the theory that the confession was made freely and voluntarily. But the prosecution never did anything of the sort. So going forward now into the defense case, I think what has to happen is Mjiyako must be called by the defense to come and clear up the air for us. He must be called by the defense, to just to clear up the air, to say, Mjiyako, what role did you play here? In the light of the fact that Ntanzi says he never, solicited or got you to act on his behalf as his lawyer. And I think that Mjiyako, as a practitioner and a professional, Mjiyako has an obligation to clear up his name. I wouldn't let my name be bandied about in connection with something as high profile as the Senzo Meyiwa trial in such a controversial manner, and not surface somewhere to set the record straight. So Mjiyako has a lot to explain to us, especially in the light of the fact that that confession that Ntanzi is supposed to have made before a magistrate has been used or has been relied upon by the prosecution to a large extent, to try and establish the guilt of the accused persons. So, like in India, Mjiyako plays a very huge role here. He'll have to come before the court and clear up what his role was. We just have to get Mjiyako here and let Mjiyako tell us what was going on between him and Ntanzi. Having said that, let me round up this video by saying that I'm very encouraged by the subscriptions that I'm seeing. I'm also very encouraged by the views that I'm seeing. We are I think we're about 70 subscribers away from that magical 7,000 subscriber mark. Tomorrow is 2025. It's the first day of January 2025. Please subscribe. Let us make that number. Let us hit that 7,000 subscriber mark by tomorrow. I have also indicated that I've been offering free legal advice. That this free legal advice is offered without prejudice. I'm not committing myself. I'll, to the best of my ability, give you the very best legal advice that I can give you, right? But I do so in law. They call it doing without prejudice. In other words, I do it with the disclaimer that should you use that legal advice, and something goes wrong somewhere, don't come back to me and blame me for that legal advice, because that is my disclaimer. I'm offering that legal advice without prejudice. But that does not mean that that legal advice will not be sound, because every step of the way, as you go ahead and make a follow-up to that legal advice, I'll be with you. I don't just give you legal advice and abandon you. You'll ask me about, let me give you an example. Say you ask me about the divorce matter, right? How do I divorce my spouse? I'll let you know how you can go about doing it. And I mean, as you do it, or when you get into it, I'll be there every step of the way with the best of intentions. But I do everything without prejudice. And the only obligation that you have in exchange for that free legal advice is for you to subscribe. Go to the Legal Eagle. That is where all these things are happening. Go to the Legal Eagle on YouTube Home and subscribe to that channel. Just like you've subscribed to this one or about to subscribe to this one, please also subscribe to that other channel. Having said that, this is the last day of 2025. Starting tomorrow on the 1st of January, we are diversifying now. We are diversifying into other areas. This is not the Senzo Meyiwa channel. We have dealt so much with Senzo Meyiwa because I thought there was a lot that I had to bring to the fore. There was a lot that I had to attend to and address. And there's still a lot to be done. There's still a lot of projects underway. There's the T-shirt project. We're going to look into the case when the matter starts in the High Court around the 20th of January. So the Senzo Meyiwa trial and investigation will always be with us in one way, in one shape or another, in one form or another. So, but we are getting into other topics now. We are getting into other topics now. I want to look into, on the first day of the year, I want to look into issues around the EFF, Malema's life, the EFF. Where does the EFF stand as matter stand? It's been a very turbulent year. in South African politics. We had an election around May, which, turned out to be what it is. But that may not get into tomorrow's business. Tomorrow we're getting into the specifically the EFF and Julius Malema, and see where Julius Malema's life is going and where the EFF as a party is going. Thank you very much for viewing. Please look forward to that EFF and Julius Malema analysis tomorrow morning. Thank you very much and Happy New Year.